Okay, Watchman of Ephraim here, part 5, Synagogue of Satan. This man believes that the modern day Hebrew roots movement, Messianic movement and the like, Torah keepers, are the synagogue of Satan, Revelation 3:9. In the latter days, a people would appear claiming to be Jews. That's a spiritual term there. Okay, that the true people of God. These people come in the name of the Torah, and through the radical keeping of the letter of the Torah, they destroy the whole operation or work of God. From what their status or their inheritance is in this age to the fate of mankind, casting themselves into the roles of what I would call, and what the Bible calls, common Israelites, taking themselves out of the priesthood and fulfilling what Paul said: if you're going to be in Hagar, they're not heirs with the Jerusalem that's above. They destroy the whole operation of God. This is my research on them, and this is my conclusion. Who wants to look like physical Jews or Hebrews, speak like physical Jews or Hebrews, dress like physical Hebrews, Jews, sing like them, right? What else? Okay, well, that's probably good enough. A carnality. I guess you could say a carnal spirituality, if that even makes sense. They come in the name of the Torah and they lie about just about everything concerning the Torah. The main thing being the restitution of all things. They basically witness the destruction of just about everything concerning the human race. So a quick review here, or let me just bring this up. Here's the earth. That's the old creation. You're not sanctified by the old creation. You're not sanctified by the seventh day if you are part of the first fruit priesthood age. You are in the eighth day, and this is what this video is about. This is a big part of my ministry, the eighth day from Torah. These people suppress the eighth day. They'll expound on, they'll talk about, they're very aware of the eighth day after tabernacles, or the new creation, which the first fruit priests are now as a witness, that happened on Shavuot or Pentecost. You are not sanctified by the Sabbath day. You are yoked with the risen man if you are in him in this present age. You've died and were raised with him, seated in the heavenlies, enthroned. As I'll review one or two scriptures. But for the most part, they suppress, they don't study, they look over, they pass over the eighth day. You're not part of the old creation. The millennial Sabbath rest, the 1,000-year reign, is part of the old creation. It's a new beginning, beginning with the Day of Atonement, which will happen at the 120th Jubilee, the 50th year, the 8th Sabbath of the 8 Sabbaths of years, or 7 Sabbaths of years, 49 years. Then you have a 50th, which is the 8th. And you will be resurrected if you are accounted worthy to attain that age on the Day of Atonement. You're not sanctified by the old creation. You're not set apart by the seventh day. You are in the eighth day, and the eighth day is all through Torah. So what I'm going to do here, and if you debate them, hey, I've been called a Jesuit, a Jesuit. Slow of tongue. I've had people block me. I've asked them, do you study the eighth day in Torah? No. At least they're honest. No, or they're not even aware of it. The teachers don't teach it. But we're to live by every word of God. And the Torah is, once again, the instruction manual given to the Son concerning the restitution of all things. The holy days are a prophetic calendar. They are prophetic events in their appointed times or moedims. Right now, it's the priesthood age. We need a priesthood first to implement the new covenant. The statutes and judgments, which I'm going to get into, beginning in the book of the law. Do you know we're going to have to know the book of the law or the book of the covenant? Exodus 20 through 24, beginning in 24. You know you're going to have to know that. Do you know there's going to be laws that are going to be governing farm? You know, there's going to be people, sheep breeders, shepherds, people that are going to be owning vineyards, and they're going to be raising wheat. They're going to be growing wheat and crops. You're going to need laws again in the kingdom. What's going to go out to the nations? You priests. The Torah. So what if I'm getting off. What if an ox gores another ox? You got laws in there. All are going to know Messiah from the least to the greatest because he's going to put his Torah in their minds and write them in their hearts. And you, the priests, are going to have to know these laws because you're going to be over the cities, right? Well done, good and faithful servant. Have rulership over 10 cities. And judgment was committed to them. So you're going to be over all this stuff. For the law will go forth from Mount Zion. And where are the saints? Where are the first fruits with the Lamb? On Mount Zion. So it's all in there, the instruction manual. These people destroy the whole operation of God. Coming in the name of the law. Let me get out of that. Reviewing once again. Which day is the Christian Sabbath that didn't exist in the first century? These people live in a false paradigm, which actually was started by evil pagan Orthodox Christianity. There's no truth in Orthodox pagan Christianity, and there's not a whole lot of truth. Well, I mean, there is. In the Torah keepers, the Sabbath is on Saturday. But you're not sanctified by the old creation. You're not. You're not in the seventh day. You've died and been raised. You are given through faith, the operation, the work of God from the Torah. You have been given the status of a new creation. That's where Paul got this stuff at. He just wasn't blithering these things out. As your scholars will claim, a new philosophy, Christianity, Paul brought. Turn the world upside down. He didn't turn the world upside down. He just knew the Torah inside and out. He knew the priesthood. He knew the eighth day. You just got to go in there and look for it. That's why he said, circumcision avails nothing and uncircumcision avails nothing but a new creation. He just didn't blither that out from the Spirit. So I got challenged a few years ago. concerning the things that I witness. The salvation of all, being in the spirit of the Torah. And I came out of it much stronger. I got a depth now from the Torah. And in the process of it all, what was confirmed, which actually was first witnessed to me in 2016, this movement is the Synagogue of Satan. Which day is the Christian Sabbath? Didn't exist. This wasn't a debate in the first century. Everyone knew that the Sabbath was on Saturday. Gentiles did meet on the 8th day, though. They called it the 8th day, or the first day of the week, which fell on the pagan named Sunday. They didn't call it the Sabbath, though. They called it the 8th day, celebrating the new creation, the resurrection of Messiah, okay, which happened on the 8th day. Okay, so this paradigm didn't exist once again. Hey, pagan holidays are God's holidays, which? False paradigm. Didn't exist in the first century. There was no Christian pagan holidays in the first century. It was just rank paganism. Saturnalia. Get a sip of water here. This is what it's all about today. So this movement came out of pagan Orthodox Christianity. It's a fake movement. Two lies don't make a truth. All right? This is a Torah-based ministry. We are in the spirit, not in the letter. Not in the written code, the grammar, as it's written. This right here is the spirit and not the letter. Verse 19, for I through the Torah died to the Torah, that I might live to God. What's he talking about? The 8th day. The fulfillment, the ultimate fulfillment of circumcision, which in reality is going to take place on the Day of Atonement. 50 years. Cycle, Jubilee, Pentecost, Shavuot, 50 days, Jubilee. Okay. I have been crucified with Messiah. It is no longer I who live, but Messiah lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, reality, you're in the flesh, faith, by faith in the work of God from the Torah, in the standing in his eyes, you're in the heavenlies. You died. So Paul's really addressing both things here. These are difficult concepts. Paul was pulling from the 8th day and the Torah of the priesthood. Exodus 28:30, Leviticus 8 in the beginning of chapter 9. You were consecrated a priest on Shavuot. That's why it's on the morrow after the Sabbath. So these people suppress it. I've watched video after video of the Hebrew roots Messianic movement and the like on Shavuot, on the day of first fruits, the day of the wave sheaf offering, Shavuot, both on the morrow after the Sabbath, 50 days apart. Never go into why it's on the morrow after the Sabbath. Because they have to enter in the 7th day every week. They have to keep their shadow Sabbath. It's part of the old you're going to rule over the old creation. That's why you have the status now, but you have. Now that being said, I know an introduction, that took 15 minutes. So let's once again get into the 8th day. They suppress the 8th day. That verse I just read to you. That is a Pentecost Shavuot verse that Paul wrote down to the Galatians. You got to search it out, right? That is the circumcision of Messiah. It's in Colossians 2. like 10, 11, 12, circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, baptized with him, raised by the faith of the operation of God. Once again, Genesis. Oh, they concerning circumcision, they're all into that. Literal, as it's written, grandma. Okay. So, Adam and Eve blow it with the foreknowledge of God. Well, they would have lived forever if they would have fed from the tree of life, and they would have lived forever in the flesh. There's nothing in Genesis 1 or 2 or 3 that mentions that they would have been a new creation. They hadn't sinned. They would have continued on in their flesh. Well, the flesh became corrupted. Now we have another day. It's the 8th day. Verse 10. This is the covenant of perfection. Verse 10. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in your flesh, in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Now notice, he who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. Every male child in your generations. Okay. When is it? When the child is 8 days old, or on the 8th day. Okay. For the Torah, having a shadow of the good things to come. So I'm going to go through verses here, witnessing the 8th day that gets suppressed by the Torah keepers, by the Torah teachers, by the Hebrew roots teachers. Because it's over if they come to grips with it. 22. You know what? Let me just back up here. Let me get out of this. Let me go here. Number 8. Real quick. It's in your Torah. Okay, what does the number 8 mean once again? The number 8 in the Bible represents a new beginning, meaning a new order or creation, and man's true born-again event when he is resurrected from the dead into eternal or aeonian life. So it means resurrection, new creation, new beginning. So when Paul was talking about the saints, you, me, if we're accounted worthy, buried with him, raised together with him, resurrected, seated in the heavenlies, that's a resurrection. He's kicking back to the 8th day. That's why Shavuot, Pentecost, is on the 8th day. That's why it's the morrow after the Sabbath. Picture the 7-day week. Or picture the 7 Sabbaths in the weekly, the Sabbath of weeks in the 50-day period. The morrow after the Sabbath being the 8th Sabbath. Or the week, the last week. The first day being a Sunday and the 8th day being a Sunday, the pagan Sunday, or the first day of the week. Okay. All right. Now we'll get back to this here. Okay, so now we're going to go to... once again, I've read this many times. New King James Version, but the NIV gives you a better version. You shall not delay to offer the first of your ripe produce and your juices. So in this produce and juices, you have actually 3 harvests. You have the barley harvest and the produce and the wheat harvest. And you have your juices. You have the grape harvest. The barley and the wheat, the day of the wave sheaf offering, during unleavened bread, the morrow after the Sabbath that falls within the 7-day feast of unleavened bread. The wheat harvest, 50 days after the morrow after the Sabbath. The morrow after the Sabbath, 50 days later. Which is what? The 8th day. So your produce and your juices, 3 times a year, they had to appear before Yahweh with the first fruits of their offerings. During unleavened bread, during Shavuot, Pentecost, during tabernacles, in the /8th day after tabernacles. So you had the barley, the wheat in the spring, and you had the grapes in the fall. This is the harvest of humanity. These are the 3 harvests. This is Messiah, the barley. This is the first fruits, the wheat, the priesthood, the body, the church, the wheat in the spring. Then you have the rest, the grapes that must be put under Messiah's feet and our feet forcibly in the fall. 3 times a year shall you appear before Yahweh your God. Exodus 23:14 through 17. And they shall not appear before Yahweh empty-handed. Notice again, the firstborn of your sons you shall give to me, likewise you shall do with your oxen and your sheep. It shall be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you shall give it, or give them, better translation, NIV and others, you shall give them to me. Messiah was given to God on the 8th day, the day after the weekly Sabbath during unleavened bread, the wave sheaf offering. The morrow after the Sabbath, Shavuot or Pentecost, morrow after the Sabbath, we were given to God. We went to the New Jerusalem, in the place where Yahweh chooses to put his name. I'm cutting things short here. Deuteronomy 14 and chapter 16. Go to the place where Yahweh chooses to put his name. He chose to put it in Jerusalem. There you shall appear before me, and you shall not appear before me empty-handed. I listened to a 119 video on Pentecost. All they talked about was doing physical things on that day, on how to keep it. Eat ice cream and cheesecake to commemorate going into the land. No expounding on the 8th day. Why is it after the morrow? Always ask why. Why is it on the morrow after the Sabbath? They suppress the 8th day. They've lost their inheritance, and they are causing other people to lose their inheritance too. Okay. On the 8th day you shall give them to me. When is the barley given? When is the wheat given? When are the grapes given? The grapes presented? Well, the 8th day after tabernacles. Okay. They will be in the 7th day. They will be in their flesh. You've been given a different status now. Okay. Now we don't go out and begin to keep pagan holidays now and abominable things that aren't in the Word of God. You as priests need to be learning. That's what I'm going to start getting into, the book of the covenant and things like that. Leviticus. How are people going to learn what Messiah is like? He's a burnt offering. What does a burnt offering represent? Yeah. People are going to have to, there's going to be farming again. If someone torches another person's standing stack of grain, well, how are they going to handle it? If someone forces a virgin to lie, how are they going to handle that? Well, you know what? What's going to go out to the nations? The Torah. This is great stuff. That's why I read the Torah 2 to 3 chapters every day. I don't fail. The nations are going to wait for the judgments of the Torah. The book of the covenant. These are the judgments that you shall set before them. Remember you the statutes and judgments in the Torah. Malachi 4:4-6. And judgment was committed to them. Revelation 20, 1-5. This is great stuff. It's all in there for us. What do you think we're going to be doing? Just congratulations, you're a priest. Going to go be a priest. It was put away, though, and branded useless by the Roman Catholic Church since 500 AD, whatever. It's all there for us. The relations between farmers and people. You shall not revile your God or curse a ruler of your people. It's going to apply. If an ox gores another ox, what do? Well, there's the law of restitution. Yeah. The right rulings. You as a priest, going to be over them. You know how I found that out too? Just came on me. Well, let me just go on here. Okay, I'm getting off on the matter at hand here. Okay, Leviticus. I could go to Exodus 23, just real quick. I know it doesn't mention it, but I just mentioned it. Or Exodus 23, 14-17. 3 times you shall keep a feast to me in the year. Now, that's what God was alluding to in the previous chapter that I just read concerning the granaries and the grapes. You shall not delay to offer 3 times a year, because in unleavened bread you had to appear with the first fruits of the barley. During Pentecost, Shavuot, wheat. And in the feast of ingathering, tabernacles, the grapes. Okay, you shall keep the feast of unleavened bread at the appointed time in the month of Abib. For in it you came out of Egypt. None shall appear before me empty-handed. They had to give their first fruits. In the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors. Think Matthew 13. The wheat, which you have sown in the field, in the feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labors from the field. Deuteronomy 16:16 is identified as the winepress. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before the Lord your God. Okay, going on here. Leviticus, I have here Leviticus chapter 9. Chapter 9. This is after Moses consecrates Aaron and his sons. They're shut up in the tabernacle for 7 days. They're being consecrated, keeping the charge of the tabernacle in their new white garments. It came to pass on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. So on the 8th day or 8th year, on the Feast of Tabernacles, or the 8th Sabbath, during, the day of unleavened bread, you will be summoned to begin your ministry at the millennium. This is what this is all about. And the fire of the altar was lit by God. It will be lit once again when his Shekinah glory returns. This is all prophetic, this whole chapter. Okay, before the house of Israel and Judah regathered. Okay, let's go on to Leviticus chapter 12, verse 3. So this is, Moses called them on the 8th day, called them out of the tabernacle for service. Let me get a sip of water. Did you ever hear a Hebrew roots person mention that, eighth day? Do they even apply the priesthood to themselves? That's what the Levite priesthood is a shadow of, our priesthood. Verse 3, and on the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Okay, this is before you could even keep the law. You had to be circumcised. Okay? But this has to pertain to a child. Well, this is dealing with the same thing. A child had to be circumcised on the 8th day to be admitted into the congregation of Israel and to partake of the things of the law. To partake of the Passover, you had to be circumcised first. Our spiritual circumcision took place on Shavuot. That's applied to us. That's why Paul said, you know what? If you compel someone to be circumcised, Christ will profit you nothing. And you're a debtor to keep the whole law, because you've put yourself back in your flesh. You've destroyed the whole operation of God in the Torah by faith. You've destroyed the status, the inheritance. You've destroyed your status and your inheritance. Okay? This concerns a woman in her customary impurity. Okay, Leviticus 14, good old Leviticus 14, the leper judgment. Let's just start in verse 10. I'm just going through the 8th day here. But on the 7th day he shall shave all his hair off his head. This is the cleansing of the leper, the ritual. He's getting closer to the camp. This is critical to understand this here. But on the 7th day he shall shave all the hair off his head, and his beard and his eyebrows. All his hair he shall shave off. He shall wash his clothes and wash his body in water, and he shall be clean. He's on the 7th day, so he's complete. Okay, this shows you where your status is. You get the 7th day. You are a new creation. Notice verse 10. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, as a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. Then the priest who makes him clean shall present the man who is to be made clean, and those things before Yahweh at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. You can't meet God unless you're you can't appear bore him in your flesh. What's the tutor teaching you? 3 times a year shall all your males appear before me, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. To be in the presence of God, you have to become a new creation. You have to become a spirit being. That's why this guy's shaving all his eyebrows and his hair off his body. He's becoming a new creation as he's getting closer. Okay. The only way you can appear before God or be in the heavenly places, which a priest must, that's where he dwells, and that's why they profaned the Sabbath day, because they were serving in the heavenly, shadow and copy of the heavenly things in their white garments. And when they left the tabernacle, they had to take off their white garments and put on their tassels and that, and go back and be an earthbound common Israelite. Okay? This is the only way you can be in the presence of God, and you're enthroned right now, according to Paul's gospel, which he got where? From Messiah, and also Romans 1:1? From the prophets, from the Torah. Paul confessed he believed all things that were written in the law. Acts 24:14. Okay, real quick here. 23. He shall bring them to the priest on the 8th day for his cleansing. to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Where? Or before who? Before Yahweh. Throw that at a Torah keeper. It's not. They destroy the whole operation of God. They're living in the false paradigm. Okay. Okay, Leviticus 15:14. Bodily discharges. And what does this symbolize? In the sin inside that's stopped up, and the flowing discharge, which manifests outside the body, or with the actions of the body. The spirit and sin that's manifested in your works. Okay. Excuse me, Leviticus 15, verse 14. On the 8th day he shall take for himself 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and come before Yahweh to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and give them to the priest. Okay, what's the tutor teaching you? You have to be in the 8th day to appear before Yahweh. If you keep entering to Yahweh's 7th, well, you know what? You've fallen short. If you think that's the end, well, you've fallen short. Hey, can you keep this? You can keep it, but don't bind it for salvation, which they do. Oh, no, we keep it to be obedient. But ask them, hey, you know what? I don't keep the Sabbath. What's going to happen to me? You'll be destroyed. Well, then you're not. Then you got to keep it to be saved. Okay? Let's call a spade and a club a club. Okay? Okay, Leviticus 15:29. Concerning a female's discharges. And on the 8th day, what day? She shall take for herself 2 turtle doves of 2 young pigeons, and bring them to the priest to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. She gets to present herself to Yahweh on the 8th day. All right. This is serious stuff. This is God's Torah instruction manual. So when Paul says you're a new creation and you've died and been raised, the righteousness of God that's without the law, the Torah, being witnessed by the Torah and the prophets, you better take what God gives you. It's a free gift. It's imputation. Okay. Okay. Leviticus 22:27. When a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall be 7 days with its mother, and from what? The 8th day and thereafter it shall be accepted as an offering made by fire to Yahweh. The only way you're going to be accepted by God, 7th day doesn't cut it anymore. Okay? The common Israelite will be keeping that in the millennium. You may well be keeping it too, as a not for obedience. I mean, you're going to be perfect. These people will be keeping it as part of the new covenant, and they will be taught the spiritual applications of it. You will be hallowing these days. Okay. I got to look at that a little closer in Ezekiel. Okay. And from the 8th day and thereafter it shall be accepted as an offering made by fire to Yahweh. That's Messiah. He had to be an 8th day sacrifice. Who teaches that? Whether it's a cow or a ewe, do not kill both her and the young the same day. Going on here. Verse 31, therefore you shall keep my commandments and perform them. I am Yahweh. 8th day. That's why in Romans, or in Revelation chapter 14, you've got who on Mount Zion? The heavenly Jerusalem. You've got the Lamb, and you've got the 144,000, the first fruits to God and to the Lamb. What's that tipping you to? Well, it's tipping you to the day of the wave sheaf offering and the feast of first fruits. Or Shavuot. Tomorrow after the Sabbath. You better be in the commandments. Yeah, that applies to Matthew chapter 5, 17 through 20. The greatest command of all, before you can even keep the law, circumcision. That's why you got it all. Now we don't go out. All this stuff is there for our learning. You don't go out to begin and keep pagan holidays and that. That's why you're at the end of the Torah, which is love. You walk in love, mercy, graciousness, kindness, humility. Be imitators of God, Paul says. Ephesians chapter 5, right? Verse 1. I do believe. Okay, let's see. Leviticus 23:26. Now this one is readily accepted because it's the new creation, beginning of the new earth creation. So this will be accepted, and if there's anything about the 8th day these people will witness, it's that. And then you get some weird things from there. They're saying that's when we'll really have the Torah put in our minds and our hearts, and we'll keep Torah forever. In other words, we'll eat clean meat forever, we'll keep the Sabbath forever, and it'll be in our heart. You get some weird stuff. I mean, just trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Bending and twisting the scriptures and the verses. I'll only spend one... Leviticus 23, 26. Okay. Hold on here. Going on here. I was a little off on that. That's all right. Verse 33, then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days to Yahweh. Going on here, for 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. Now notice, verse 36, on the what? 8th day you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. This is when I believe those... all that are or will be ruled in the millennium will be changed. That will be their 8th day. This is what I'm seeing. This is when they will appear before Yahweh in his full glory. Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. In the millennium, his Shekinah glory. The pillar of cloud by day and the fire by night. Okay. Sacred assembly, you shall do no customary work on it. Okay. Verse 39, after tabernacles, on the 8th day is a Sabbath rest. Okay. Now that's also in Numbers 29, verse 35. Okay. The 2 Chronicles 17:9. also mentions the eighth day. Why don't I just cut that one kind of short? That's the eighth day after Tabernacles, when Solomon dedicated the temple. Okay. Let me just turn the page here. Okay, let me go over here. Let me exit out of this. Let me go over here and mention a couple of areas where the eighth day is subtly mentioned. Okay, you got to catch it. Miriam and Aaron bad-mouthed Moses, slandered him. Yeah, you're taking too much on yourself. In Numbers, it's a wild book, boy. Moses, yeah, he ended up cracking up. One rebellion right after another, like beginning chapter 11, chapter 10, 11. So going on here, let's do Numbers 12 here, verse 14. Miriam, see if you catch this here. Okay, so Miriam gets made leprous, her whole body. So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, "Please heal her, O God, I pray." She bad-mouthed, slandered Moses. She got made a leper. All right. So what happens to a leper? They got to go outside the camp, according to the law of the leper. So Moses cried out to Yahweh, saying, "Please heal her, O God, I pray." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "If her father had but spit in her face, would she not be shamed 7 days? Notice, let her be shut out of the camp 7 days. So 7 days she's shut out of the camp. And afterwards she may be received again. So 7 days she's outside the camp. When can she be received in? On the 8th day. So Miriam was shut out of the camp 7 days. And the people did not journey till Miriam was brought in again. Brought in again when? On the 8th day. Okay, you don't hear this in Torah teachings. If they do, they'll just read over it. Because their religion revolves around the shadow 7th day Sabbath. Okay? And that they are sanctified or set apart by that. You can't find that in the New Testament. You know what it reveals in the New Testament? Messiah sanctifies you. You know what that reveals? That He's our Sabbath rest. That's a video I got working on in my mind. Matthew 11:29-30. He's pulling from the weekly Sabbath command and the Day of Atonement. Okay. Going on here. I have to, forgive me. There's one more I have to mention here. We'll go in the New Testament, maybe. Let me just type in one more time here. 8th day. Ezekiel. Let's go in context. This is the temple, Ezekiel temple. This is the priests that will be serving, the Zadok order. I think that's really the first fruit priests. It's just another video in itself. They are the ones that are going to come near God and offer the fat and the blood. I believe that's all symbolic, figurative language. 7 days they shall make atonement, these priests, for the altar, and purify it, and so consecrate it. When these days are over, 7 days, it shall be on the 8th day and thereafter that the priest shall offer your burnt offerings and your peace offerings on the altar. Okay. And notice, and I will accept you, says Yahweh your God. You can only be accepted on the eighth day. That's why Paul said, and it's a good translation, he has made us accepted in the beloved. Ephesians 1, I forget what verse, sorry. It's in the beginning. Where did he get that from? Accepted in the beloved. He's pulling from the Torah. Okay? On the 8th day. So, in no way this is saying that the 8th day replaced the 7th day Sabbath. There is an 8th day Sabbath. It's a new creation Sabbath. All of humanity will enter that Sabbath. That's after Tabernacles. But, through faith, first fruits, you got it on Pentecost. You got a double fruit blessing. The right of the blessing, the birthright, goes to who? The firstborn. Deuteronomy 15:17. They get a double portion over everybody else. And when must the firstborn appear? Well, the first of the first fruits appeared on the morrow after the Sabbath, during unleavened bread, the barley harvest. Melchizedek. And you, his body, as Aaron's sons were his body, his helpmeet, you know. That's why you never hear, other than the Day of Atonement, you never really hear about Aaron, or lighting the lamps and that. You never really hear about Aaron. It's always the priest, and the priest shall do this, and the priest shall lay the offering on the altar, and the priest shall do this, and the priest shall do that. That's his helpmeet. That's his body. Paul's not pulling from anything new. These are mysteries of the kingdom. He's bringing out the old and the new. Okay. To get that double, to get that blessing, you have to be in the 8th day. You're going to rule over the creation. You're going to be a part of a heavenly kingdom that's coming down to the earth, and we shall reign on the earth. These people believe you're part of the carnal Israelite grafted in. I'll address that down the road. This could be endless, this study. They're liars. They lie about everything. It's because of the paradigm. Two lies don't make a truth. Two wrongs don't make a right. Does that make sense? Yeah, you know what? Let's just go to Luke 9. I like how Luke does this. I forget which verse. Just wrap it up here. I think I've shown enough of the 8th day. It's there in the Torah. No use in, riddle me not, they say. It's suppressed. finish with this. Now it came to pass about 8 days, or on the 8th day, probably that's why it's there, after these sayings, that he took Peter, John, and James and went up to the mountain to pray, and he prayed, and his appearance of his face was altered, and his robe became white and glistening. Or like Mark says, white, like no soap, launderer's soap could make it. And behold, 2 men talked with him. This is the Feast of Tabernacles. You're going to be raised in the latter days. I will pour my Spirit out in the latter days, Peter says. He adds to it what's in Joel chapter 2. The house of the mountain of the Lord, his mountain, the kingdom, shall be established above the hills in the latter days. It shall come to pass in the latter days. Okay, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke about his decease. See, that's Luke. I know it says 6 days, whatever, but Luke caught it here, 8 days. He threw that in there, I believe, the Holy Spirit. He appears and they appear in white. That's the garment you should have, not tassels, not dressing up like a Jew, a physical Jew, an earthbound Jew. That's what Messiah said. There's neither Greek or Jew, male nor female, slave. I'm starting to get a little pickled here. All right, what verse 26 of, I do believe, around there, verse 26, whatever, of Galatians 3, male nor female, slave nor free. Right? Because you put on the Lord Jesus Christ. You put on his garment. That's what he's saying. Put off the old man. Put on the new man. Put off the sinner's garment. Put on the new man. This gets suppressed by them. I've shown you plainly. That's why Noah and his sons and their wives, 8 of them. What's that trying to point you to? They go through the flood. Everyone dies. They come out into a new creation. It's like a type of a new creation, a new beginning. And Peter, in, 1 Peter 4, I think. Yeah. My memory's terrible. I could go there. Saved through water. Baptism, an antitype that saves us. Baptism. Well, that's where Paul got his doctrine. That's when you were consecrated. That was a consecration, a priesthood consecration on Shavuot. Okay, so another lie. Suppressing the 8th day. Like it doesn't exist. Now, I've showed you several places where it does exist. Oh, I forgot one more here. But anyways, it's also in the law of the concerning the red heifer. 3rd day, 7th day, they had to be cleansed or washed. And they could come in on the 8th day. Okay, I never got to that, but that's subtle. You have to catch it. Okay, so what day are we in? If you're a first fruit. And in the firstborn status went to the priesthood. I didn't even mention that. Their inheritance was God. They were to be ministers of the tabernacle. They weren't to inherit the land physically like their brethren. They inherited the priesthood, and they were the ministers of the tabernacle before Yahweh. And it's going to be united with the Judah king, David. Here I go. The Davidic kingly line, Melchizedek priesthood. All right? You're in the 8th day. You're a new creation. You're going to rule over the old creation. You're not sanctified by the seventh day. You're beyond that. I showed you. On the seventh day, you'll be here. On the eighth day, you appear before Yahweh. You get the seventh day. Okay, so thank you for your time and thank you for listening.